What is a telltale sign that someone is a selfish person? When anything that happens to them is the worst thing in the world, and whatever happens to you is not that bad and a waste of time talking about or dealing with. I know your mum died a month ago, but my best friend of 3 years died too, so I don't see why you are so sad all of the time. I think narcissism and selfishness go hand in hand, so there you go. Friend of mine was talking to a mutual ex-friend about how she was feeling shit because it was coming up to the anniversary of her sister's murder. The ex-friend responded that she was also feeling shitty and needed support because her boyfriend, who had been visiting for the weekend, had gone home. We both cut her off after that. I love these threads. I always use them as a way to measure whether I'm doing those things or not and fix them if I am. Made it about yourself, haven't you? Yeah. They feel no remorse for how they've hurt others. Doesn't think they're wrong in the slightest bit. They can't shoulder any bit of responsibility. Look, it's not my fault that you can't do anything right. My former neighbors are bad alcoholics. Every night is a Friday night. Weekends are like New Year's. The police were constantly getting called to their house. Their kids not only destroyed their property, but other people's as well. Their junk was always strewn all over multiple yards. Their landlord evicted them. My neighbor was pissed and fought hard in court to stay because they paid their rent via assistance. It was everyone else's fault but theirs. It was the landlord's fault for being biased against them. The neighbor's fault for complaining about their kids. Their parents' fault for not helping more. Everyone bears the blame but them. All I can say is it has been so peaceful since they've been gone. They bring nothing to the potluck but are first in line. They brought Tupperware containers to the potluck to bring home. They don't remember the times people helped them, but remember clearly all the times they have helped others. They respond how worse their situation is when you're sharing your problems with them. No try for help or listening, just trying to draw attention on their side. Ah, the complainers. I have a friend that is like that, and lately I have just been letting her talk with dry responses such as, "Oh wow, tough lucks. Yeah, you told me all of that via texts, and I would talk only if she would ask me a question." Well, the hangout got silent super fast, and it seems she is no longer satisfied sharing the details of her life with me. Sometimes that is their way of trying to help. They're showing they experienced something similar, and hopefully they use it to connect to what you're going through. I know there are plenty of one-uppers out there who are narcissistic and use the story to turn attention to themselves, but there are also those who believe that misery loves company, so to speak, and that if I tell you about my bad time and how I got through it, it might in some way help you deal with your bad time. They gladly take any favors you do for them, but when asked if they could reciprocate once, they get defensive and or aggressive and act like you're the selfish one for daring to expect something in return. It doesn't make you a bad person to expect reciprocation in a relationship with someone else, romantic or platonic. Relationships are give and take, and that makes them healthy. It's not entitlement to expect kindness if you give kindness. If you're the only one giving, you're being taken advantage of. Edit. As some people have pointed out, doing something kind with the expectation to gain something from it can be manipulative. I'm not talking about narcissism and manipulation. I'm talking about the natural give and take in a relationship. It is not manipulative to expect certain things out of a relationship, depending on what kind of relationship it is. The whole reason we make relationships is because they give us something, whether that be support, love, safety, or other advantages. It isn't a bad thing. It's a human thing. Typically, with give and take, if you notice a pattern of one person consistently taking without giving, the one taking is the problem, not the one giving. The kind of people who use this as a manipulation tactic aren't the ones who stick around in a relationship for years, doing favors and kind things without being asked to. They're more likely to do one favor and demand twice as much in return. Why do I know this? I've had these people in my life, which is what gave me the realization I commented above. Currently going through this with my roommate. She always asks for my help, expects me to walk her dog every day, constantly asks me to pay rent in advance, even if I'm not getting any income for 3 weeks. Yes, she asks me to pay a second rent just a week after the last. She never thanks me for walking the dog. Any advance payment? No thanks either. She will just keep asking, as if I am her bank account, then get angry when I am unable to pay. Last week she asked me to cook extra amount of food because we had guests, and then threw a fit because I used beans. It's not that she or anyone else can't eat beans, it was just her dislike of the day. She had eaten those same beans in other dishes and liked it, because I had put so much effort into cooking more food than normal, and her behavior was worse than usual. I have completely stopped helping her, or even speak with her. Every bad thing you do to them is drama. Worthy every bad thing they do to you are details and should be moved on from. And why can't you just do that? You're so dramatic. Edit after 40Q. I never thought that being so upvoted would make me feel so sad. It's heartbreaking that so many people can relate to this. I'm reading every reply that are addressed to me. Thank you for sharing. Why can't you just move on and forgive me? Or the classic is, when you do something that pisses them off, you stop. But when they do something similar, never 100 the same, but they don't understand the nuance. They can't understand why that would ever upset you, and it shouldn't upset you. It's not that big of a deal. I'm trauma dumping here. Lol. Anyways, people don't take responsibility for their actions. Or if someone else has done something slightly inconsiderate or annoying, the selfish person will expect you to take their side. If you try to rationalize the other person's behavior, I guess they're going through a hard time at the moment. The selfish person will treat it as a personal betrayal on your part and refuse to accept any nuance in the situation. But then, if the selfish person does something equally inconsiderate or annoying, they'll always have a ton of excuses for themselves. If you are in a group, and there is one person that is constantly interrupting the middle of what you or anyone else is saying generally to brag about themselves with a one-upper story, is generally a precursor to stop associating with them. I've met too many of them in my days, and they are more often than not happy to throw you under the bus whenever the opportunity arises. The 11 type. You say you've been in Tenerife, and they say that's cool, but they visited 11 If they always talk about themselves, I know many people that will just not shut up about their day an entire call, then just leave when you start talking about yours. I have a friend who talks about herself a lot. Once I visited her on my way from work, and she talked for like 2 hours, and I said maybe 10 sentences, Lio. But she's not selfish at all. She just knows it's hard for me to talk, so she talks all the time. But every time I need to talk to someone, I choose her because she listens when I need it. When every single bad thing that happens to another person gets spun around into their personal problem, I'm really upset because my family member is going through it, and that friend is too busy to care for my needs. Can you believe they didn't text me back immediately? My wife's family are like this. My mother-in-law is seriously ill in hospital, and somehow they've made it all about them and how hard it is to support her. I'm not denying it's difficult, and I'm happy to listen, but if you are regularly snapping at and falling out with the extremely sick lady for inconveniencing you and making you feel anxious, then you've got a problem. They have that superpower to lead everything back to themselves. Even when you're actually talking about your own life or a specific problem of yours, they somehow make it that you start talking about them instead, without even changing the topic. Nearly everyone does this to a point. There's an extremely fine line between trying to comfort someone by saying something like, I recently went through something with my father as well. I'm so sorry, and making their issue about yourself. It's crazy how common it is, and I'd guess if you are sharing something tragic to a group of people, at least one will try to make it into a competition and one-up you. Complaining at work to co-workers, doing your work for you while you complain. If they refuse to take responsibility for their actions, they want to dig up your dead dog to use the skull for taxidermy purposes and is insistent on doing it despite your objection. Wildly specific. They never admit when they are wrong, even if there is physical evidence. Conversations don't feel like conversations. They are one-sided talks about what they want, their thoughts, their life, their priorities, etc. When you are able to slip a word in, your words are used as transitions in their dialogue. No matter how you format your words, they all just add to the plot of their story. What you say and what you do are pawns in their game to be manipulated in a way that belittles your experiences, actions, opinions, and choices. I see you've met my manager. I wonder if this is everything it appears to be, because I work with a dude who has medium autism, so we look after him and he doesn't work. He's definitely not selfish. He'll go out of his way to help people who are more vulnerable than him, and always puts them at ease and gets them to open up and interact and basically have fun and feel safe. But you can't get him to stop talking about himself and his interests. It's all football, running, football. But have I told you about running and football, Harry Potter, and that time 9 years ago when you accidentally farted? If you didn't know he was autistic, and it's actually not as apparent as you might expect, you'd probably wonder why you can't get a word in edgewise. I always worry I come off like this. I have so once I get going on a topic or train of thought, it's difficult for me to fully process the other person's response or switch gears to a different subject. I hope people around me realize I'm interested in their thoughts and what's going on in their lives. I'm just socially awkward and overly excitable. When they always play the victim card, 99 of the time, they only place themselves in the victim seat by ignoring all the effort or cost other people have to endure and only focus on what they go through themselves. Cliché answer, but I have found the return the shopping cart test to be pretty accurate. It is such a small thing, but it does tell you if a person thinks small things like that matter. This is my favorite armchair measure of good person. There is absolutely no benefit to you as the trolley returner, but there is loss to others if you don't. There's also no immediate human association, like with how you treat a server or retail employee. Just raw. Are you thinking about the other guy? They're rude to wait staff or just staff and employees in general. Or if their situational awareness is severely lacking and they don't seem to have a problem with it. I bartend part-time. Always funny when some very young couple or two people on a date come up to order and one of them is clearly less than impressed by the other's manners. The other day, two people came up, ordered, guy didn't even say thanks and just barked his last name out for the tape. She pinched her face, looked me dead ass in the eyes and thanked me. She left immediately after finishing that beer. Happens very often. For me, it's people who listen to loud TikTok in public, especially in relatively silent places. There is a guy that hangs out in my favorite bar. Doesn't talk much and stays to himself, but he sits for hours watching videos on his phone with the volume on. It's the most obnoxious thing ever. Bartenders finally told him to turn the volume off or stop watching. He was 100% oblivious to the fact that no one else in the place wanted to hear that shit. My ex was insanely selfish. Her dad gave her a $20 a month allowance. You paid for her mortgage on a penthouse in Nice Sea while she went to Yale. He paid her car insurance. She had zero need for cash. All bills are paid. He also gave her a credit card with him assuming no limit. 'Cause we bought a car on a whim once. But I saw her steal $3 from a friend who was passed out. She'd steal panties from Walmart. She had a pile of cash in her bedroom. We once needed to pay for a delivery. If it was bagels or pizza, but she refused to touch the pile of cash. I had to walk to my car to get cash, and when I tipped her $10 for waiting, my ex went ballistic, calling me a bitch, a moron, and queer. So why would you give a random porky bitch $10 for $5 worth of food? We went to a celeb wedding. She found a way to take 4 gift baskets as opposed to the 2 we were supposed to get. Every guest got one. She also stole a $500 gift card to Victoria's Secret from the wedding. She's wicked greedy. How the fuck is she spending $3 a week? A visible exoskeleton. Edit. Oh, selfish.